Dear viewers, thank you for joining us. I am Addis Asafa. You're watching OBN Horn of Africa. Today I joined by Dr. Annemau Antana, a long-serving lecturer at Addis Ababa University. Of course, apart from his academics career, he is a staunch advocate of human rights. During the TPLF regime, he has been fighting for a maladministration and violation of human rights. By the time in which people were in fear, he has been confronting Prime Minister Meles Zenawi face to face. Before directly going to our discussion today, I am going to play a video which was viral by that time, in which he has been confronting. So, Dr. Annemau, nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much, Addis.
I'm really happy to join you today. Of course, you were one of my favorite lecturers at Addis Ababa University. And you are, as I have said, apart from this academics career, you do political activism as well. And you played a significant role in hosting a TPLF one way or another, right?
I wouldn't really describe myself as such.
Okay.
I'm no way to be described as a freedom fighter, as you would like to
Okay.
describe it. I just had an opportunity in that meeting you mentioned with the former Prime Minister Meles Zenawi to air my view, and it wasn't even planned. It just happened. As I always say, it was an accident that I did what I did. But I'm glad it came out the way it did and affected thousands of people in the right direction, I would say. From the comments that I get, I know that many people have been influenced by what happened there, and that has given them the inspiration to do something themselves, I would like to believe. And if that has contributed something to the changes that have occurred, I can only be proud of it. But I wouldn't really say that I'm a freedom fighter. That's a big thing to say, huh?
Okay.
Too much for me. And I'm not a political activist either, even though I recently joined IZEMA, because that is the party that would represent my views for this country. The party being, established on the philosophy that citizenship is the right political path for this country. I am a staunch supporter of this philosophy, and nothing will change that. Otherwise, calling me a freedom fighter is a little bit too much for me.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks for the kind words, by the way.
A pleasure. Okay, dear viewers, take a look of that viral video by that time in which Dr. Annemau confronted Meles Zenawi face to face.
What if your perception is wrong? That is my worry. Anyways, it's too late. ወደ ኋላ back to square one ወስጄ እንዲህ አይደለም ኤትኒክ ፖለቲክስ ያጠፋናል ምናምን ወደሚለው ክርክር አልሄድም, because it's too late. I think it's too late. ምንድነው ልናደርግ የምንችለው አሁን? ኳሷ በእኛ ቁጥጥር በሰው ቁጥጥር ስር ናት። ምንድነው ልናደርግ የምንችለው? እኔ የምለው ቅንነት ነው የሚያስፈልገው የሚመስለኝ። እርስዎ ቅን እንዲሆኑ ብቻ ነው የምመኘው። በቅንነት እንዲመሩን ብቻ ነው የምመኘው አሁን። ምክንያቱም እዚህ ሀገር ሌላ መልቲ ፓርቲ ሲስተም ተቋቁሞ እንዳሉት እርስዎ ገበሬ ውስጥ ገብቶ ፋይዳ ያለው ለውጥ የሚያመጣ ፓርቲ አይኖርም። እርስዎ እያሉ አይኖርም። ምክንያቱም እንዳይኖር you make sure that it doesn't exist. You have been successful so far, you will be for the next 20 years, I give you. I'm not a fortune teller, then I can see it. እና አሁን ልል የምችለው እኔ እንደ ትንሽ ትል እዛ ውስጥ እንደሚንከባለል አንድ ሄልፕለስ የሆነ ክሪቸር ልል የምችለው እኔ ለዚች ሀገር ፌት በእርስዎ ቁጥጥር ስር ስላለን ቅንነቱ እንዳይለየው ብቻ ነው። ልል የምችለው ተስፋ ላደርግ የምችለው እኔ በግለሰብ ስለማመን ወይም ቲዮሪ የተሳሳተ ሆኖ ወይም ምናምን ወይ እሱ እንደገና ልክ እንደ እርሶ ፐርሴፕሽን በታይም የሚታይ ነው የሚሆነው እንጂ እዚህ ጋር መልስ የሚሰጡኝ ስተቴን የሚነግሩኝ አይደለም። ስተቴን እንዲነግሩኝ ምን እንደሚሉኝ አሁን አውቃለሁ ሳይነግሩኝ። ስለዚህ አይንገሩ፣ ምንም ነገር አይነገሩ። አመሰግናለሁ።
Okay, Dr. Annemau, can you, give us a highlight about this video and what it meant by?
This video that made me who I am today, appearing on different channels and being taken as an important person in the nation. Well, like I always say, it's a little bit too much for me, but there it is. I can't help it. If people have taken it this way, so be it. And I'm only proud that people have taken that positively. And like I said earlier, it might have inspired some people to do the right thing. And I have already said in Amharic while I was
I need your interpretation because
while I had that interview, yes, that comment came on the second day of the meeting, the 17-day meeting we had with Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, and I had always, now I have to change the tense,
Exactly.
I'd always listened to him. I'd always listened to him. I'd always followed the path TPLF had been following since I was at university, and I was really afraid about what could happen if people really followed what they propagated to do if they took power at the time. You know, when I was in Asmara University, we had only two divisions. Ethiopians were divided into two. One group was the Eritreans, and the other group, the rest of Ethiopia at the time, was in Amharic the Mahal Agar. The Mahal Agar means the central part of the country. So we only had two divisions, and I was really saddened by the fact that Eritreans had been pushed to the edge, and by the time I was there, it was already over. I realized that after I got there. I never thought the politics of this country had pushed the Eritreans to the edge of secession. For me, it was like, you know, this is a member of a family being angry at the government and refusing to have dinner, for example, yeah, because I am angry at my father or mother or brother in the family, and refuse to have dinner, go to bed without eating. But I would forget it, all about it. In the morning, would have breakfast, and everything would be normal again. So the Eritreans for me were like children who were angry at their parents, and that was it for me. That was probably naive of me at the time, as I was very young and politically unaware of what had been happening. So I never expected Eritrea would secede, would go away. So it was a shock for me in 1990, was it? Okay. When Eritrea seceded from Ethiopia. And it didn't stop there. The TPLF took control of Ethiopia. And we knew from their radio broadcasts in the bushes, from the bushes, that they would divide the country along ethnic lines. And even though it seemed impossible at the time, when they came in and took power and started implementing it, It was a shock. Some people at the time who were very angry at the Derg, the military junta at the time, who had lost family members because of the repression at the time. My own brother having been arrested for 3 years. You know, we were all unhappy about the Derg. And some people were happy that the Derg was gone. Whoever did it, you know, people focused on the fact that the Derg was over. So people never really paid attention to the consequences. The consequences of TPLF taking power with the intention of dividing us along ethnic lines. But some of us were quite keen on that, quite afraid of it, quite.
Among others?
Yeah, I was. So I had been following that very keenly, especially the Prime Minister making speeches every time, as eloquent as he was in what he says. I was interested in how he would lie about things, how he would try.
Are you referring to Mallas Zenawi?
Yes, to you know. So when I got the chance, that chance in the meeting, to raise my hand and say something without even preparing for it, I never knew I would say all the things that I said. It just happened. That's how I would describe it. It happened.
In a very spontaneous way.
It was very spontaneous, but it had been fermenting inside, and I couldn't even control it.
You uttered your grief. I mean, your feeling.
Yes, and I told him that, and honestly speaking.
Can you just recite it word by word for our audiences?
I told him, by the way, this is a small piece. Well, not too much has been taken out, but there were other things I said before the one that people have seen. I said to him,
Dr. Gamichu was with you by that time?
Yes, yes.
He has also, I mean, forwarded an amazing commentary to the Prime Minister by that time. But
yes,
only yours was taken.
By the way, people were afraid of expressing themselves in the meeting. We had even asked for journalists to be taken out of the meeting, so we would be free to say what we liked. And on the second day, there weren't as many journalists as on the first day, on Monday. So people had that, you know, Dr. Gamichu actually was the first one, as I remember, who dared to say something, even though I don't remember what he said exactly. Yeah. He was the one who dared to say something that was kind of challenging to him. And unknowingly, because he was apprehensive of the consequences, his hands and feet were moving. You know, he was moving his hands, and the Prime Minister, witty as he was, he said after he ended his speech, he said, "Now we have started talking," he said. "This is what I call discussion. When your hands and feet start moving,"
when you became kinesthetic,
he said, "that is what I call talking." And we laughed about that. And that's what started other people to also come forward and say something. And mine came a lot later than many other people who, by the way, had very important things to say substantively. What made mine famous, right?
quote unquote,
Quote unquote, is the fact that it was blunt and
straightforward, not rehearsed.
yeah, and you know, kind of not being very respectful to the king, to the king at the time. I would describe him as a king at the time. He had already become a king. He had achieved a status of a king at the time. Nobody would dare say anything like that to him. As I heard, even among his own close group, nobody would be as daring. That's what some people told me.
The king is always right.
The king is always right.
So
Yeah.
no one is.
And I only said to him that as long as he was alive, multi-democracy, multi-party democracy would be impossible, because he had been able to do that so far, and that he would be. Nobody would stop him from doing that in the coming years as well. As you know, the party had already got into the roots, all corners of the country, including the peasantry. So he was, like I said, a king by the time. And the opposition attempts were so weak and so fragile that
he was the only tragic hero.
everybody knew nothing would happen. Yeah? And he knew how to do this. He was good at that.
He was good at
Very good at
conspiracies and manipulations.
stopping you. He even said it in public, didn't he? He said it several times. You wait for opposition parties to grow legs. You wait for them to grow legs and feet. And when they grow legs, you cut them off. You cut the legs off. That's what we are doing. He said that in public.
Not only that, the flag thing. A flag is not a symbolic representation of a country.
Yeah, that was immediately after they came in, when the flag issue was being discussed. I think they had a plan to have a completely, exactly. At the beginning, I think they thought they could change the flag completely. But having assessed the feelings of many people at the time, they decided to let it go. Let the piece of cloth go, the chark in Amharic, right? Let the chark go, the piece of cloth. For him, it was no more than a piece of cloth. And that really irritated many people, I remember. Then, after a long time, we have this Flag Day, which was, why it started.
Exactly.
It's to kind of reverse what he said earlier, and to also build his to show us that he's changed politically, that he's now more Ethiopian than he was at the beginning. So there's no need for people to go against him. After all, he loves the flag, right? Yeah. So to make us believe that he's just like any other Ethiopian. Yeah, but very hard to accept after everything that has happened. So that happened, and the commentary, I was really desperate. I mean, I had lost hope, if you like, that Ethiopians, after decades, well, then it wasn't decades at the time, probably 15 years of practicing ethnic politics, after our children have been told so many stories, I thought that it was too late for people to come back to taking each other as fellow Ethiopians. People were going deep into their own holes, if you like, ethnic holes.
Ethnic lines, yeah. Ethnic belongings, affiliation, yeah. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Changing this scenario after that, telling people, children who have grown up, being told like that, telling them that it was not really the right thing to say those things, that you are, after all, brothers and sisters, Ethiopians like everyone else, would be difficult. I think that's what we see now. What we see now, for me, even from the top leadership in some regions, who grew up learning that and having come to power with those ideas, I can imagine how difficult it is for them to change beliefs, to change opinions. That's what makes me believe or fear that it might be too late, to take us all back to Ethiopianism again and think of a whole country instead of the small portions of the country that we have been given, given. That's why I say it's too late. When I told him it's too late to go back, that's what I had in mind.
Great. Doctor, many were jailed, assassinated, kidnapped, lost and found, and murdered. I mean, fortunately, you survived from all these evils, isn't it?
Yes.
How? Even let alone confronting the prime minister, you've said the king by that time, the tragic hero. It was difficult even to talk to an ordinary individual about the evil thing that is implemented by TPLF, the then administrator of the country.
By the way, when people came forward and asked me this question, so many people, even today, come and ask me, how did you survive? And many people in their comments on social media cannot believe it, that I'm still alive. And many of them even write RIP after listening to that small video that you just showed.
Are you serious?
Yeah, RIP. So many people write RIP.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, because this guy couldn't be alive now, and they're sure. And that kind of scares me, because, I never thought
You were agitated.
it was that serious. I thought this was a comment encouraged
You were really panicked.
by the Prime Minister at the time, and never really taken seriously at the time. You know what? The reason why this video became so important
And very viral.
It's because of the 2005 elections. That Anasabat, the Amharic calendar, right? 97, the Amharic calendar. 2005 in the Gregorian calendar. That historic election actually made me look like I was a prophet.
Even in the video you've said, I am not a fortune teller.
I said I'm not. Because all the journals, the newspapers and the journalists said almost the same thing all the time during that time. There were so many...
You've said, I am not a fortune teller, weren't you?
No, I'm not.
It happened.
No, I'm not, because
It happened.
many other people have said the same thing. The only thing was that I said it to him direct, and in that tone, which I never really intended, but just happened, like I said. That's what made it different. But they took a calculated risk, as they say, when they decided to make the 2005 elections free and fair. And people were able to speak their minds on television and on the radio, reaching the countryside, right? And people could not believe that a government would allow people to insult it, right? On its own radio, on its own television. For them, it was like there was no government at all, because we had never had anything like it before. And then they were taken by surprise. the opposition did what they did. I just couldn't believe what happened in that election. And finally, having seen the results, they did what they did, you know. The elected politicians were put in jail. They were sentenced to death.
It was a kind of ceremonial election. Yeah.
They thought it would be, as he said, Yeseni Ma'bal in Amharic, meaning the tide coming from a cup of water. What kind of tide would be created in a cup of water? Yeah, that would be as weak as that.
It is not forceful.
Yeah, nothing would happen because the opposition had only a few months to organize, and how could it compare to a party that had been there for so many years and armed with all the weapons that they had? So it was like a tide in a cup of water. But it turned out that people came out in those numbers to express their disappointment and hate for, I would say, ethnic politics. That for me was a referendum given by the people on ethnic politics. People said loud and clear that this is not good for us, that this would be dangerous for us. And when they have lost the elections, they decided to reverse it. And the elected officials were put in prison, and they came back. They came back in power. And people were killed, as you remember. So people went back to my video, to that clip, to that comment, and said, as long as you are alive, multi-party politics would not be possible. You have been able to do that so far, and you will be for the next 20 years that I give you. That became a prophecy.
A prophecy.
Yeah. That's why people think I am the prophet somebody, which I am not, I insist.
On a certain interview, you've said, by comparing EPRDF, and which was coined and headed by TPLF by then, versus the contesting political parties, very handful by that time. And you recited a certain cartoon picture, the wolf and the lamb. Can you recite us again?
I'm surprised you picked that up because nobody else has mentioned that to me from that interview. Even though that interview was taken very differently by a certain group, as you know, and that really clouded whatever was said in that interview. And only one thing came out. I don't want to talk about that. That description was really a real one. At the time, the power of government, TPLF or TPLF/EPRDF, that's how I would like to see it, was so powerful and so dangerous and so cruel that the comparison between the wolf and the lamb, the little lamb, was an accurate one. So the comparison between the opposition and the government was similar to those pictures. Whoever did that.
Okay, dear viewers, a wolf and a lamb, in this context, a lamb is a young of sheep, to mean that, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Go ahead.
a young of a sheep and a very large, hungry wolf that can swallow that lamb at one go, if you like. Yeah, at one, just one mouthful, yeah. And that was the real comparison between the opposition.
It was a big tank salivating.
Exactly. And that's what happened in reality. You know, in reality, that's what happened between the opposition and the government. The opposition then was not, to be honest, properly organized. It was not on the ground. It was just a mob led by very few eloquent, educated group of people. by then. And people looked at them as the party. They were the party. And they said everything that people wanted to say. They felt that way. And everything they did was right at the time. Everything they said was right. It was right, but the thing is, it wasn't on the ground. The party was not on the ground. And it was just an outlet for people to come out and say, enough is enough about politics that was being done.
Okay, after bitter resistance of the public and internal resistance from the coalition EPRDF, at the end of the day, TPLF was ousted. So a kind of a bit tension is out there in Tigray. Anyway, what do you feel about it?
Nobody could have predicted how this would have ended. One thing was sure.
The reason why I asked you this is, Doctor, sorry for the interruption, the TPLF, the most dominant political and economical entity in Ethiopia, even in the Horn, some media are mentioning that way, is ousted through bitter resistance from the public. The state machinery was at his hand. The tank and the bank, all including all other staff, even the military and the National Defense Force, But when resistance comes from the public, enough is enough. Work is there. So can you elaborate for us, and what does it teach for the rest of the world as well?
Like I was saying, a system organized the way it was, and only a minority taking control of everything. It's obvious that this would end one day. What we could not tell was when and how. And nobody could have predicted that, even a fortune teller.
The hostage was
yeah, you know, how many more years would it take? Would it have taken? Nobody could have told. But you know, in my opinion, it happened sooner than I expected, in a way that nobody expected. The public pressure, yeah, the demonstrations, the opposition was becoming stronger, but in my opinion, they could still have killed more people. They could still have massacred hundreds of thousands of people. They could still have stayed, clinged on to power a little longer. But, you know, some political calculations there, which I am not very aware of, happened and saved us.
From the coalition?
Saved us.
From the coalition?
Yeah. Something saved us. That's how I understand it.
So the
It could have been bloodier.
The credit goes to the incumbent.
Yeah, you know, the coalition, as you say, they created between the two parties. That was unexpected. And they never expected this. I think they were lucky.
Yeah.
They were lucky. I wouldn't really say they planned it so carefully, and they were prepared for it for a long time. I wouldn't say that, you know, to my understanding.
Yeah, me too.
I wouldn't really say look, they were so careful and prepared from the beginning, and knew
killed the cat.
Something like that, you know. It just happened, and the TPLF themselves were taken by surprise.
Exactly.
They didn't know this would happen.
Exactly.
If they had known this would happen, as I say, more people would have been killed. They could have stayed a little longer. How long? I don't know. But disaster would have taken place. Yeah. Genocides would have taken place. You know?
More atrocities.
Yes. And we're lucky. That's why people were so happy The moment Abiy took power and made that speech, and everything seemed to have ended so peacefully, we just couldn't believe it. That's why even the most educated people in the country came out and said, this is a God-sent solution. Why did the TPLF give up that easily? Why did they give up that easily? I don't think anyone could answer that question, because in my opinion, if they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have let it go, because they had everything in their hands, as you said. They had everything in their hands. All the generals and the colonels and the weapons they had and everything, which they used later on, which they tried to use later on, were at their disposal. Why didn't they use them then? I think they were tricked. Something happened, and some people might say it's a God-sent solution for us. Nobody would have thought it would end this way. I certainly thought it would have ended in a bloodier, much bloodier way than the way it did, and I'm glad about it.
Dr. Asmara Antana, a lecturer at Addis Ababa University, a long-serving academician as well. Thank you for making time to give us this interview, and thank you for your precious time, and thank you for your scholarly as well.
Me this chance. I've never appeared on an English medium before, and I hope that will give some of my friends a chance, some of my friends who don't speak Amharic a chance to see how I think about this country and about our politics. It was really interesting to be here. Thank you for giving me the chance. And as usual, people will interpret what you say the way they like. Okay? I would encourage people who don't agree to come forward and air their views instead of hiding somewhere and criticizing everything that other people say. We are coming forward and expressing our views because we think that might contribute something to the nation as a whole, right? I don't have any personal interests in this. Thank you for giving me the chance.
Dear viewers, thank you for being with us so far. You've been watching Talk to OBN, our weekly edition. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye. Have a good one. See you next time.